What was the black market in your school? In high school there was this game fad where people would try to stealth zip tie other people's bags to their desks, shoes together, whatever, so they'd be stuck when the bell rang. One guy sold the heavy duty zip ties and another sold mini scissors for easy escape. There was a kid who sold lemonade out of his car. He made it a real business after high school. I wonder how he's doing with COVID. Me and my friend had several get rich quick schemes that never paid off. A few that come to mind. We got the idea of breeding Mai and his dog to get puppies and sell them. So he brought his dog over and we locked them in my room to get the deed going. After about 30 minutes we got talking and realized both our dogs were castrated and males. So we dropped that plan. Second plan was when my older brother got us a round hi-fi stereo in his room. This was 1999, so that was still somewhat uncommon. Me and my buddy charged a fee for people to come and watch movies cinema style at my house. Third, when we found a dildo in the room of my friend's mother, we charged a fee for people to come and see his mom's dildo. I literally sold stretched out, dried baby wipes for $2 a piece. Baby wipes get super soft when they're dry, or at least that brand did, and my classmates were fascinated. I claimed to have sewn these mini blankets myself. It worked for the entirety of 3rd grade before I got called out and cancelled in 4th. When I was in grade school I started making mini clothes out of fleece and sewing them on my Hello Kitty sewing machine. I charged like $1 for each outfit, but it very quickly became an issue with people trying to steal my supplies and others not being able to purchase the clothes. It got shut down and I had to low-key sell the clothes at recess. Energy drinks in middle school. There were 2 kids who just happened to have parents who owned liquor stores in the town. One kid started taking stuff from their parents' supply and selling it out of his backpack. Other kid caught wind of it and figured he should get into the game too. Honestly, the other kid finding out was the best thing for me because the market adjusted just like it should have. Kid 1 was selling warm Monster energy drinks for $5. New kid came in and sold them for $4. Kid 1 came back with 3.50 and they were like kinda cold lol. Eventually they both got caught and got in trouble, but I took advantage while they were around. In my 9th grade English class, there was this kid who would bring soda and Pop-Tarts to class and sell them. We weren't allowed to eat in class, so I had to eat my chocolate fudge Pop-Tarts discreetly. Eventually, the teacher put a stop to it, but it was a good run while it lasted. Wasn't really a black market, but people would offer a service for things. Not many people liked giving money, so here's how it would go. Dude, can you get me a can of dip and some booze? I will come to your farm or ranch to work for it. Sure. Just come and feed the cattle Saturday morning and it's yours. I ran it. It was $1 soda cans out of unused lockers. I moved inventory almost weekly and had multiple kids helping me out in exchange for free soda. Made upwards of $3k over 4 years. Almost got caught once because a new student was given a lock I was using, but I managed to move inventory before a teacher found it. This was a huge school. Mind you, I had probably 20-ish lockers. There were at least 5 folks selling weed on a large scale, and a few others selling other stuff. One guy sat next to me in history and one day in class opened his bag and showed me a very large mason jar just stuffed full of weed, next to a scale and baggies. These folks would always talk about running pounds on a train from California. People got caught, but were only put on a program to keep track of them. Some other folks turned to stealing band equipment and computers, and selling that off. For being one of the nicer public schools in town, it was full of unchecked crime. Also had a guy that would put different OS on iPads for a fee, cause those were a thing. Not sure how black market that is though. There was a kid who gave away sandwiches for free, but the school stopped him because he was creating a gang culture. Candy. I swear the only reason kids were nice to me in 9th and 10th grade was because I always had candy in my backpack. Also, in the psych ward, lifesavers. If your parents gave it, they'd bring you a bag and you'd get a Dixie cup full of them at break and trade flavors with other kids or share with your friends who didn't have any. Different flavors were worth more. Aside from the actual illicit things like drugs and smokes, we had basically a forerunner to Uber Eats. Seniors who were allowed to leave during lunch break and had a car would go pick up lunch someplace for a fee. This was especially good if you had a free period before lunch, as you could run out, grab the food, and the customer had hot lunch from wherever at the start of lunch period. Funny story. Back in grade school we had these caught being good paper passes that teachers gave you on rare occasions. They would give them to kids and put it in a raffle at the end of the month for a gift or something. Me and my friends got someone to let us see it. We printed out a bunch of them and started to sell them $5 a piece. Sooner or later, all the teachers and our principal got suspicious when all the bad kids started turning these passes in. So we decided to end our scam by printing out 200 passes and handing them out randomly. We passed them around to so many people that we could never be traced. It was basically hyperinflation. The passes were being circulated around so much that the school ended up discontinuing the reward program. My locker, condoms, smokes, cider and chewing gum. Those big ass round lollipops that come in funky flavors. I used to take a train to school every day and a kid would sell them 2 for $1. Probably gave him $200 personally over the course of middle school. I like lollipops. I used to draw hentai for a coupe of bucks. Also, the default punishments for bad behavior and stuff was copying the rules of the school a certain number of times. I wrote a few more copies every time I got punished and sold them to classmates. When I was in middle school, someone started selling crushed up Smarties that kids would snort. One guy was literally running a convenience store out of his locker one year. One dude was selling Molly in gum packs. Some kids stole stuff from the school store and sold them online. I think it was stuff like graphing calculators. So I think they probably made a pretty penny. And speaking of graphing calculators, people traded games and programs for them. There was a rumor that people were selling public speeches too, but that's pretty boring. Trades of stolen goods shoplifted and stored in caches only a few knew about. Like a stash of porno mags and alternative comics in an artillery box buried under that kid Gary's sandbox. Or the petty cash stored in the knothole of an oak tree on the property of a guy who was rumored to shoot kids who snuck into his backyard via said oak tree. There were some suppliers for expendable things like caps for captains, illegal fireworks, M80s and the like, candy, cigarettes, and beer. Mostly teens who needed the cash to buy things like pot. Our local pot supplier was also our local Boy Scout troop. Rumor has it, they were growing pot under the shady trees of the Scout Lodge, which was always in a state of disrepair. There were also pot fields in a local private property called Black Pond, which was a summer camp for rich kids during the summer, and boarding school for girls of the super rich the rest of the year. Not mine, but I just found out that my friend's sister makes their mom order venti-sized drinks at Starbucks with 3 separate ice cups, distributes the venti drink to the other cups and sells them for $5 a piece. Literally costs her $0 because her mom buys them and gets $15 at least twice a week. We had a weed dealer. I think that counts. We have this girl that's really sweet and cute and always wears pastel colors. She's so unassuming and innocent looking that none of our teachers will ever know she sells pot muffins with edible Hello Kitty stickers on them. Back in elementary school, more specifically the last couple years, it was all about mechanical pencils. Having a lot of them was a symbol of power and wealth, and trades would occur based on how desirable the mechanical pencils were. However, if you had a really unique mechanical pencil, this was seen as even more powerful than having an abundance of mediocre ones. Theft would occur here and there, and this stirred up the tension. Classes were formed and social circles were reflective of this. Pokemon cards. I went to a private school. Geez, some of the answers here are hardcorer than me. Drugs, of course, and donuts. Pirated music. I used to charge people $1 per song to burn them a CD. I'd go on Napster, DL Music, and burn a CD. I made all kinds of spending money. I had a high-speed connection which was fairly rare at the time. It would take me all of 5 minutes. I think it was 5th grade and everyone started bringing in these homemade cinnamon toothpicks, usually in an old prescription bottle. I bet that wouldn't go over well today. Everyone was making them and sucking on them during class. Who had the best? etc. It was a fad that came and went. Whoa. I'm surprised how popular this was. When was all this big toothpick activity going on? For me it was late 70s around the Dallas area. I was very good at forging signatures. Get me a sample of your parents' signature and for $5 I'd sign whatever. This was back in the 80s. $5 would keep me in Munchies and Red Pop for days. Top ramen. Kids would bring that every day and eat it dry. If you were cool with someone that had it, they would just pour some of it into your mouth for you. Our black market was pretty much an actual black market. There were a few known kids who were basically your in. You told them what you were looking for and they would reach out to their guy. Another kid who would remain anonymous. The guy would then steal whatever item it was you were looking for. Don't ask from who or where. Give it to the handler and you had 24 hours to pick up your goods, or they went to the highest bidder as they were too hot to hold on to for longer. There was a flat fee of $20 and that would change depending on how rare the item was or how expensive it was normally. You also took on all the risk once goods were exchanged. The students abided a strict no snitching rule, so if the handler ever got picked up by the faculty because they had information, you could assume that someone was going to pay you a visit later on. Honestly, it was a great system, and everyone understood the rules. If you're careless or leave your stuff unattended, someone was going to take it and you were probably never going to see it again. At the same time, did your stuff get stolen? Need a replacement? $20 will get you one. Yes, I grew up in the hood and sometimes I miss it. I sold stink bombs, smoke bombs, and when I could get them, porn magazines. I used to get in trouble in class for making and selling those little lizards made out of pony beads and yarn for $1 each. As keychains. I'd bring yarn and beads and work on them when I was done with the reading schoolwork. Then some itch started selling them too, so I had to up my game and offer custom colors and stuff. Joke's on you, Jenna. I learned valuable business skills. I was the hookup for 6 toys in high school. Can't buy 'em under 18, but I knew stores that didn't card. I also sold condoms to kids that didn't have a way to get them without their parents knowing. In high school I used to sell random things to people. I would sell Black and Milds to kids for $5 a piece and cigarettes for $1 a piece. I even sold condoms to a few kids who were too embarrassed to buy them. Long distance phone calls. So this requires quite a bit of backstory. It's the 80s. ETANT has a monopoly on the long distance telephone service. MCI comes along and wants to get in on this lucrative industry, so it buys an interest in communication satellites. Only problem is that even with satellites, the calls still have to go through terrestrial lines for a little bit on each end. ETANT says no way and off to court they go. Eventually, ETANT sees the writing on the wall and voluntarily breaks up into multiple companies. The baby bells. The upshot of all that is that you could pick up a phone, dial an 800 number, put in your code and you were in business. Worked great. People loved it. However, if you had the time, you could just put in random codes, and eventually one would work. If you were a computer nerd, you might even be able to write a program to do the heavy lifting and wake up every morning with a couple of working codes on your dot matrix printer. Now, combine that with a recent influx of Cuban and Central South American immigrants wanting to call home that would rather not pay $15 a minute or whatever it was. You can easily sell those codes for $20 a pop. Yeah. They only work for a month or so until the legitimate owner of the code gets a $7 K-phone bill because Julio really loves his shire in Guatemala. But it's still not a bad deal at all. That super caffeinated drink. Balls. One kid would buy them at the store for $1 each and sell them at school for $2 each. When I was in 4-H, my brother and I would sell lollipops as a fundraiser for our clubs. I would go through a bag of 25 in a few days just selling to kids on the bus. We initially got in trouble for selling stuff, but the principal then let us slide because it was for 4-H and not just trying to make money. Also, when we started middle school, we were amazed that they let you chew gum in class. People started bringing in packs and selling sticks for 25 cents. Grade school, sugar, soda, candy and the like. High school, whatever you wanted if you knew the right people. My friend, pretty infamous for his bullying, was detained by our strictest in charge and was taken to her room. She threatened that she'd not give her water, which was a hoax, until he told her where he'd hidden the attendance register. She knew that he'd never give up and sent him to the class. That guy stole the whole bunch of gate passes from her room. Gate passes let a student leave the school within the academic hours, which is the holy grail of fun experiences. He, being dumb yet brazen, stole it, but asked me to lead the sale. We sold it for 2 days until the guard realized that something is wrong. Apparently 30 students felt unwell on the same day and the in charge allowed everyone to leave for home without parent supervision. He confessed to have stolen the gate passes and never took my name. He never even asked for his share. He did it only for the fun of it. I respect him a lot XX. We had kids soaking toothpicks in some kind of cinnamon concentrate liquid. Then they'd sell them to other kids for like $0.50 a piece or something. They tasted like those fireball candies. Super hot. I heard one kid actually got a chemical burn on his lips from one or something. Probably just one of those urban legends. Drugs. Just once and it blew up and the persons who were caught got thrown out and were arrested. CDs with games and apps like Photoshop. I still remember feeling ripped off because I did not know what to do with that image file and was expecting an executable. Fireworks. In Australia these were banned without a permit. And we were 14-year-olds without a permit. My best mate ended up getting bags and bags of fireworks from his stepdad and I would sell them at school for him. We would split the profits 50/50 and for that year we lived like kings. I remember kids trying to extort me, asking me to give them cheap or free fireworks or they'd tell the principal. I never gave in because I didn't want to lose profits. So I'd tell them to go ahead and do their worst. Then I'd give my bag to my friends to hold for me. These kids were clearly bluffing because nothing ever came of it. Though I remember a few times where I had barely any school books in my bag because I needed the room for fireworks. And during class the principal walked in and looked around the room. Then pointed at another kid and asked them to go with him. Those moments made me think my time was up. Other kids would say they could get fireworks cheaper and I told them to go for it. But they would always come back for my fireworks. 20 years on and I'm just glad that I never got caught and that no one ever blew their hands or fingers off. Done. We didn't have a black market. Not unless you were counting actual drugs and vapes, in which case oh boy. Trading Lego minifigures. I had a ton. And honestly they're still super cool. I started a type of black market on my school. The first year every time I came back from Turkey I brought 20 pair of fake Gucci socks to Germany. Then I sold them in my school for €5 a pair, told them I went from Italy with this car boat to Greece and then to Turkey. Then I would usually say I have an uncle who worked at a Gucci store and that he would give me some of those socks. But in reality I went to a Pazza and bought them for 20 cents the pair. Then I started sell some olive oil to 3 of my teachers. The first teacher, my teacher, bought every 5 months 5 liters of olive oil and gave me about 75 a day. The second one bought 12 liters of olive oil and gave me 180 a day. And the last one bought every 2-3 months 3 liters for 45 a day. For real, as an immigrant child whose family is in farms and you can do good money. Sorry for mistakes if there are any. Not really a black market, but you could pay to get bad things done. There was this kid who didn't give a rit about school policy and you could get him and his goons to do a bunch of stuff. Once I paid him to walk out the school during lunch and get me some tacos from a Taco Bell just a short walk from the school. The only other thing I did was pay them to pour spoiled milk. They kept large amounts of expired hot lunch milk in some guy's locker. As long as nobody got hurt, the teachers didn't really care. It got shut down when some sick duck paid this almost £200 guy to tackle a 5th grader. I remember this problematic kid coming to school with a duck ton of tech and selling it very cheap. He would go to this big store before school that had no cameras and no security guards. He just got to the tech aisle and shoved all the headphones, wireless chargers, speakers. He would buy something small like some gum or water. That store didn't have those sensors that can detect an item that hasn't been paid for. He would come to school and sell a thing that is worth $100 for $3 or just give it away. He never got caught. Now he is an 18-year-old no life who escaped juvenile and went missing. Recently he came back from prison. When I was 14 I bought a ton of weed from a guy in Mexico. The weed smelled like blueberries, blueberry kush BTW, and was literally unnoticeable. I charged 15 bucks a nugget and nobody ever found out. I was a ducking king. And being the fat kid, I managed to become popular within a few weeks. By the end of the year I had made over $2,000. Altoid sours when I was in elementary school. People were basically slaves if you gave them one. Pizza. My dad's store won the contract to supply pizza to the high school after a blind taste test. Food cost for a large single topping was $1.50. Charge 10 bucks for a pizza. Dad would make it $3. I'd tip the driver $2 for pizza, and I'd keep 5. People would give me the order the day before. I'd give it to dad that night, and he'd send them in the morning. I could only do 5 a day or it looked suspicious though. But considering slices were $2.50 at the school, well, I was able to buy some good parts for my car. Gel pens. Especially smelly gel pens. Guy sold his cum in a plastic bag for like $3. Some kids actually bought it. Ducking hated that school. Fizzes. They were these little fizzing tablets that you were supposed to put in water to create a flavored drink. You could buy them at a random store called Odds Ossinens for 33 cents for a pack of 6, and we sold them at school as 6th grade for 50 cents a pop. Kids would just eat them and make a mess with colored mouth foam everywhere. A girl in middle school used to sell Simpsons drawings for $0.25. They were really good. Weed. In high school. Was really easy to find. You could have bought it from almost everyone. In elementary school, I sold writing utensils, pencils, highlighters, erasers, to kids who always forgot something. I was the cool nerd with the big pencil case of extra stuff. I am a high school teacher, so I have seen it all. When they banned soda and candy machines at school, there was a kid who brought a huge backpack full of candy bars and pop. He made anywhere between $20 and $100 a day. I let him operate in my classroom, so he always made sure I wet my beak with a free soda. My least favorite was a guy who would sell levy bags out of the trunk of his car at lunch. 2 tall boys and a blunt. Kids would buy them, then walk over the levee behind the school where no one could see them and get cross-faded. He eventually got arrested. My favorite one was a Japanese American kid who sold spam musubi every Thursday. He also kicked up without me asking. He didn't move as much product as the other guy, but it was really good stuff. Now it's mostly kids that sell vape hits. You text the mule, tell him when and where to meet, and then you both ask to go to the bathroom. You pay the mule and take a hit, then go back to class high AF. Fizzy pop and chocolate. I used to sell 15 cans and 15 chocolate bars every day and had regular customers. Closest time I got caught was when all students were being randomly checked for knives. One off. The school wasn't that bad, believe it or not, and I hid my full bag of illegal goods under a chair before going to the hall to be checked. I made that much money I'd borrow my older sister money with interest. Bought video games when I wanted and even bought a flat screen TV at the age of 13. Literally had a pencil case full of coins and notes in my room. My parents found it equally funny and impressive. My friend's high school had cigarettes being sold by some kids. One lad sold ashtrays for them. From what he said, the craziest was some kid had a USB with all the test answers for the next 2 years and charged people around $30 for a USB with files on it. BTW, this was in Croatia, which meant $30 was an enormous amount of money back then.